So the Utah Jazz are full swing in the preseason, and while I haven't been doing much coverage of it, I do plan on doing a composite review about 10 to 15 minutes probably if things go well of the entirety of the preseason games, basically just breaking down what everybody did and what positives and negatives we could take away. Again, remember, this is just the preseason, but at the same time, it is a nice little taste test to tell us what we can expect from this season and just from some of the younger guys as they look to take either jumps going into their first, second, or third year, or just how they'll fit together on the court and what kind of schemes we could see them running with certain lineups on the court. With that being said, today we're going to be talking about a little bit of an injury bug that has caught two players in particular, Keyontae George and Isaiah Collier, both ideally running the point guard spot according to the front office managers and Will Hardy as well, but we're going to have to see how that exactly pans out. With that being said, it's your boy Wraith. Who's here, you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you're into NBA basketball. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this one. One day before facing the Sacramento Kings in the final preseason game of the Utah Jazz for this 2024-2025 season, Keyontae George has been cleared for action after an MRI came back negative on his left knee, which was the one that gave him trouble in a previous game that cost him a preseason game when he was actually going on a pretty solid run. Just looking at the numbers, he ended up playing in 3 games previous to missing the 4th one, averaging 21.5 minutes per game, going with 13 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists, while also averaging 2.7 turnovers, which isn't great considering it was only in 20 minutes of action. But he did have something that was a very big improvement on a decent sample size, and that was shooting. And that has been one of my biggest criticisms of him as a player overall, and not even just talking about point guard responsibilities, right? Because last season he shot low 30s from the field, low 30s from three-point range, which isn't good. But as a rookie, you kind of chalk some of it up to getting that extra boost, just having to take the next step forward as a player when you're playing at the highest level of basketball, obviously him coming out of Baylor. But he was shooting 52% from the field and 53% from three-point range on roughly 8 attempts from the field and 5 of those being three-pointers respectively, which is a really big step up because last year, if memory serves me right, he shot around 33% from three-point range alone. So not saying that this is something that he's going to be able to do night in and night out this year, but if this is a little bit of a taste test to tell us he's taken a step forward, even if he shoots, I don't know, closer to maybe 44 and 36% from 3, I would love that for him because last year he had a really strong stretch of streaky games. He would give us something that was amazing, and then he would give us something over a 5 or 6 game stretch where it was just complete mediocrity filled with turnover-prone nature that he was forced to have. And while he still hasn't necessarily fixed the turnovers just yet, and this is the preseason, he's trying to get his legs back under him and all that good stuff, and hopefully this doesn't hinder him. And aside from one minor injury he had last season that cost him about 6 or 7 games, if memory serves me right, he should be healthy enough to get the job done and get back on course. But overall, I have loved his game, and I'm hoping that when he comes back in this finale against the Sacramento Kings, he picks up right where he left off. And even if he doesn't shoot 50% from the field and 50% from the three-point line, he can still give us a efficient game from a shooting standpoint, even if the turnovers still ends up being 2 or 3 a game. When it comes to Isaiah Collier, though, things have been a little bit less enjoyable with less positive news for us. He will be out for the final game of the preseason as a MRI revealed a hamstring strain, which we obviously didn't want. Now, they said that he will end up being reevaluated in 10 days, which puts him right around October 23rd, which will be the regular season opener. I'm not going to sit here and say that he will be slated to play in the regular season opener because remember, we're supposed to be on a tank this year regardless. So there's no need to force anybody back as if he's going to be an immediate contributor on a championship caliber team. That's just not the case. But I do believe that sooner than later, we'll probably see some pretty fresh minutes. He might not play 20 minutes a night, but I think it's pretty reasonable to say that he could find 10 minutes here and there. I think early on in the season, we're going to see more Patty Mills, and then we're going to see more Isaiah Collier filtered in, particularly after All-Star break, because that's just the easiest time to get a lot of the young guys in, and that's usually when most of your stars get shut down for the year. Or, you know, they just come down with injuries and strains and back soreness and calf tightness and stuff like that. You just, you know, keeps them out of games, basically, to allow you to secure a higher seed on the draft board, usually, of course, or higher odds, put simply. But when it comes to Isaiah Collier, his really preseason just hasn't been the greatest thus far, but I do expect it to get progressively better with time. For him, in specifics, he played in all 4 games previous to that injury, averaging 16.8 minutes per game to go with 4 points, about half a rebound, 4.5 assists, and 1.8 steals, which was surprisingly high considering his frame and height, especially when you're talking about 17 minutes of action only. Putting together almost 2 steals a game is pretty nice, but that's also on the positive side, where the negative is basically everything else, being the turnovers higher than Keyontae George, who played more minutes than him, with 3.3, and then shooting percentages of 27% from the field and 20% from three-point range, while shooting 3.8 field goal attempts from the field and about 1.5 of those being from three-point range, respectively. Now, of course, that's a very small sample size, so there's no need to fret, there's no need to worry. We already knew he had a little bit of a rocky jump shot. We already knew that he wasn't going to come out shooting lights out. That just wasn't expected. We also knew he was going to be very turnover prone. So I think that this is just kind of us seeing what that was going to manifest as. I think that his efficiency will definitely not be in the 20s for the regular season, even when he does play in limited minutes. I think that him going downhill, getting to the basket, and making a little dump-off pass, tossing lobs to a roaming Walker Kessler or roaming John Collins, or even a kick out to Larry Markkinen will obviously do him some good. I would like to see some more action between him and Taylor Hendricks. But until that ends up happening, I think that we'll be in a situation where we just get to enjoy watching him be on the court, period, and make a lot of mistakes that are going to be necessary for his long-term development. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a fast-tracked process. I think that he'll probably take 2 seasons before we really see like a really good version of himself, because last year we watched Keyontae George make a lot of the same mistakes for the entirety of the year, and it seems like at the very least in the preseason specifically, if we're omitting the summer league, he looks really freaking good before he got injured. Now, coming into the regular season, I'd like to see him take even 70% of what he was in the preseason and apply that. And if he can do that, then it'll be perfect. It'll be wonderful. I would love that to the end of the world and back. But Isaiah Collier, I just think that this preseason is as bad as it gets for him. I don't think it gets worse than this. I don't think he plays at this level in the regular season. And I think that when the games actually matter and we're playing for something, now, obviously right now, the goal is to lose, but we want to have meaningful minutes. Nobody really pushes for the preseason, but there's going to be teams that want to make sure they win and win big against us in the regular season because they know we're tanking. And it's like, yes, they feel like they can beat us and they should beat us, but they want to beat us convincingly so that they can make sure that if things come down to tiebreakers at the end of the season, or they're looking at point differentials, they want to look like the most dominant teams in the league. So when we face the upper echelon of both the Western and Eastern Conference, those games, I think we're really going to know who Isaiah Collier is, because yes, we're probably going to be slated to lose, and we might just lose those games by 12 to 25 points, maybe, depending on who it is, depending on if Colin Sexton and Larry Markkinen are in those games as well. But outside of that, I think that those minutes are going to be very quality, because for myself specifically, I remember criticizing Keyontae George on what was basically a back-to-back against the Golden State Warriors, where the first game, he had a really strong welcome to the league moment against Stephen Curry, who was absolutely frying him, showed him how out of shape he was. And then game 2, he not only played a lot better over screens, going under screens, going over screens, fighting through screens, communicating on defense, but also offensively, he shot better from the field. And I think that Isaiah Collier will experience some of those similar slumps, but that also will hamper and depend on him being healthy enough to do it. Now, the injury bug has caught these two, but for the most part, everybody else has seemed to be rather healthy, and I would like to hope that for the most part, any injuries that we have listed on our reports this year are actually just to keep things afloat in our hopes of getting a high draft pick, and not because somebody actually has a season-ending injury or something serious that could threaten their basketball career and their longevity in the long term. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. How have you felt about the preseason so far? Give me some early hot takes about this team, and we might just make a separate video to review those. With that being said, it's your boy Wraith Hoops. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Become a member or drop a donation to help support the content. And as always, good morning, good evening, and good night, no matter where you're in the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.